All right, everyone. We're back for another episode of Strange Planet. This episode is going to primarily be about the concept and the uses of AI. And it's what we know so far and how it can be used. I mean, some of this stuff I'm sure you already know about, especially regarding this Chat GPT thing. And that's just scratching the surface as to what it's going to become, more or less. But before I talk any more about this, I'm going to hand the mic over to Rook here to give us a technical textbook definition of ChatGPT.
Well, Chat GPT is just one of the transformational artificial intelligence technologies that we're seeing in the news today. And it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And what that just means in plain English is that it basically takes the human language and tokenizes it, which means that it transforms it into data, and it can sift through and analyze vast amounts of data and spit data out. What that means practically, though, is that there's this chat service called Chat GPT, and unlike chat services, chatbots of the past, this one is actually intelligent.
Very intelligent.
Yeah, you can. I mean, the use cases for it are incredible so far.
This is just the beginning stages, you figure, too.
Right, and it's also sort of unnerving because, it takes a lot of the, I guess, activities that humans would do with their minds, and the computer can do it so much better, so much faster. For instance, you could point it towards the transcript of this YouTube video, and it could summarize it for you almost instantaneously. It could also create questions and answers. It could create a mock debate amongst participants that it just makes up out of thin air. I'll give you some more examples. If you are writing code, you're a programmer, you're writing code, and you're getting something wrong, you can just copy the code, paste it in, and it'll tell you what you've done wrong or how you can better architect your code. It can give you different code examples or even write the whole damn thing for you if you ask it the right questions.
It can also even say this might be a different version of it, but isn't it even a thing where if a user puts in certain amounts of data, say describing pictures or paintings or something, it could even do that?
So that is a different modality of artificial intelligence, but it's also one that is also coming to fruition. That is called, well, there's different models, but the one that is most popular is called Stable Diffusion. And basically what it does is it transforms your text description into images, and it's trained on millions of images, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and it knows how to connect those images to the text inputs. And from that information, it can figure out how to transform what you've written into a picture that exemplifies your description. So
that's incredible.
And not only that, but you can also take images and transform them into other images. And if you're a very skilled digital artist, that means you can iterate on different pictures and images very, very quickly. Let's say you don't like a certain portion of the picture. You could just paint a mask over a small portion of it and then describe to the AI that, you want something to be in its place, and it'll go and do that. Or you can just give it the whole image and say, if it's say like it's a picture of someone standing in a forest, you could say, remove all the trees.
But the crazy thing about it is the fact that it knows what all these things even are. I mean, anything from something as simple as like a forest with a bunch of trees to like actual artists, musicians, or actors, or people too. That's the thing that's very amazing about it.
Because advances in artificial intelligence, a specific branch of it called deep learning, has allowed for the transformation of language and symbols that humans use, and you can translate it into other outputs. And that includes sound, it includes images, it includes, of course, text, and videos are really just images that are
put together,
strung together.
Yeah, it's
right.
like a motion,
a continuous
like a flip book.
series of images. But then there's also other types of sort of 3D art that one can think about that AI still can't quite do yet. It's getting there, but
it'll get there from the sound.
It will get there, but it takes a lot of computational power, and to do like 3-dimensional mathematics. So, and it also takes a lot of data that may not be readily. Well, it's not that it's one thing having the data available in the form of 3D models, but also in the format, a consistent format where you have a description of that model and what each component is. And, it's very possible to do it, but it's just going to take a lot of computational power and a lot of data organization. And I'm sure there are many, great minds working on this, but, it's still a ways off. Right now, we can create images that are sequenced together that, it could look like 3D, and you could simulate a 3D environment per se, but for it to actually translate into something that you could maybe use in a game engine or in a movie, that can be edited by 3D software, that is still a ways away, but it's coming.
What I could also say that's very impressive about this thing is the more descriptive you are, obviously the more descriptive your outcome would be when it comes to the picture and painting part. But the interesting thing that I thought was also attached to that is even mythological beings and mythological places and stuff that obviously, no one, like heaven and hell and places like that. If you were to type that stuff in, you're going to get a result, and the result is going to be what you would expect. But it's just interesting that it can paint that picture so perfectly, in a sense, you know what I mean? Without anybody really ever knowing.
You can describe a picture of a koala dunking a basketball over a giraffe's head. And since it knows what each of those individual items are, it can identify the words that you use to describe each one, and it can logically deduce how to put those things together in a way that's creative. And there's also descriptive language that you can use to borrow art styles from people. And, this is a source of controversy. Like you could say,
like a Van Gogh style.
Right. I want a picture of a koala dunking a basketball over a giraffe in the style of Van Gogh. And it will do it with the swirls of paint. Or you could say, I want a photorealistic thing rendered in Unreal Engine 5, and it will do that too.
No kidding. Even specifically would say Unreal Engine or something.
Right.
Wow. And the thing that's most impressive about it is like your analogy with the koala and the giraffe. Now, you would think if you type this in, you might get some cheesy or like it might look kind of like it, but not really. No, these things are exactly like they look. Whatever you type, it's going to look like it.
I mean,
even if it's a person.
You can describe whether you want it in like a cartoon style or realistic or anime or pencil sketch, like whatever the fuck you want. If, you can describe it, the computer most likely knows what you're talking about and can produce it. And if you don't like it, you know what you can do? You can change the parameters. There's so many parameters you can tweak, even before touching the text prompt again.
To get what you want. Yeah, that's impressive.
Even if you don't change what you request in terms of the text, there are so many parameters that you can tweak to get a different result. And each time you press the button, even if you don't change anything, it still gets a different result because it uses a different seed, a random seed, which is just a random number that it inputs into the algorithm to generate output.
Do you see, though, like this groundbreaking tech here. I only see it getting better as time progresses. But do you think that this could also give artists and maybe like digital artists a run for their money, like taking jobs in a sense? That normally you would have to pay someone to make you a portrait or something, and now you could just have this AI do it, and now they might be out of work.
Absolutely, that's definitely a concern, and it has happened in the past in terms of this is going to happen in a lot of industries in terms of AI. But let's just talk about creatives and art. So there was a time when artists used to have to get an easel and a piece of paper or pencil, and they had physical art tools that they used to sit down with a brush or a pencil and sketch and paint out whatever was in their mind. Then with the digital age, you could do that a lot more rapidly, and you were afforded mistakes. You could afford to make mistakes and experiment because you could undo and you can go back to the different things, and in a way that you really couldn't with traditional art. And you could also copy and paste things and fuse things together in a way that would have been impossible with traditional mediums.
And even duplicate.
And duplicate, right. So like if you were making a cartoon, in like the 1920s or something, right, you would have to sit down and draw the figure and whatever. You'd have to draw out a whole thing. And then, oh, here's the next paper. Now I have to draw it all over again. Maybe I'll trace it, but it's a very tedious process. Whereas when we move to the digital age, you could draw something once, a character once, and then you could digitally transform that character, move that character, and use different layers to put them on backgrounds. And so you had a very consistent art style and a standard. And so you got to focus more on putting intricate details into scenes, and you can create a lot more beautiful art than if you were to, say, sit there and draw by hand each individual frame of animation.
Right. The other way of looking at that too is when you do it by hand, that is almost destructive in a sense, because if you were to change something, you can't revert back like you could with this. Yeah, like so it would just have to stay that way. And you have to redo the whole thing in order to make a different iteration of it. Whereas with this, you could paint one picture and then you can change that one picture, alter it a little bit, or change the night to day or stuff like that.
Right. What digital art allowed for was experimentation in terms of non-destructive workflows. And so, yeah, you could have a scene. Oh, say I want this scene to be at night. Well, no, I don't have to like throw out what I did. All I have to do is take the background layer and change it. Maybe duplicate it and change the color of the sky, change the clouds, put some different shadows. Like it was a lot easier than going back to the drawing board, literally, and doing it all over again. And so did that theoretically, I guess, kill jobs? Sure. But it also created jobs. Like before, you couldn't have art that was this detailed and intricate and produced at such a high rate. So do you know how long it would take to produce a Pixar movie?
Without the technology,
Right. To draw that and to render, like I'm going to take a pencil and or a pen and paint and you can get some very photorealistic drawings and paintings. You could actually, an artist, a very talented artist, could sit there and he could draw a photorealistic image of something on a piece of paper. There's artists that are very talented that can create 3D art on the street and it looks like it's like popping out. I don't know if you've seen those.
Seen something like it, I think.
So like an angle, it looks like you're walking on air or some shit like that.
Right. They can create optical illusions. There are some very talented artists. But, it takes a long time to do. And the talent to do that is tremendous. What digital art did was it lowered the bar for people who didn't necessarily have that dexterity of hand to participate in art.
And that's our show for this week, everyone. New episodes of Strange Planet will be on YouTube every Friday. Until next time.